Something that we started doing 5 years ago was our annual staff training and retreat. And we just got back from year 5 of doing this event. And I want to share with you 3 key things that I learned this year that I wasn't even thinking about before I went to the staff training and retreat. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Cheer Biz Podcast. I'm your host, Dan Cotton, and today we are diving into those 3 things that I learned after going to my staff training and retreat this last weekend. It was a really eye-opening experience this last weekend, and it is so important that I share these things with you. Before we get into the episode, make sure you're in Cheer Gym Owners on Facebook and All-Star Cheer Coaches and Owners, and you're in both of those groups. Also, if you've ever wanted to experience what it's like to be in one of our gyms as the next generation gym owners, then make sure you check out our Cheer Biz accelerators. These are hosted in our facilities, and you get to come for 2 days and learn directly from us, as well as see our facility and learn why we've set things up the way we have, learn how we've built our staff, how we've trained our people, and how we utilize our space to generate massive amounts of revenue for our business. Now, staff is so important to your gym. In fact, if you ever want to get out of the rigmarole of coaching every class, coaching every team, being responsible for all of those things, you are going to have to hire an amazing staff. But hiring an amazing staff sounds easier than it is. You just think you hire the right people, you hire the people with the best pedigree, but that isn't actually what hiring a great staff actually is. You have to hire the right people who are capable of becoming a great staff. Just like you want to build a really successful competitive team, you actually don't want a full team of tumblers or a full team of flyers. You need variety. You need to learn who is capable of doing what, and then put people in positions where they are going to be the most successful. So I'm going to dive into my 3 major lessons learned, things that I had not really realized before, and why I think you can take those and plug them into your business. Number 1 is, as much as we have trained on it, as much as they may believe it, my staff don't know the score sheet nearly as well as they think they do. Now, I am a little bit of a score sheet nerd. I spend a lot of time learning the score sheet. I know both of them very well, especially because I travel and do choreography. I know both the open and varsity, or the United score sheet. I know the United score sheet better than I know the open score sheet, but I know them both pretty darn well. And this year, we've done scoring presentations every single year where we put up a PowerPoint, we go through each category, we go over the numbers, and we're basically reading through the score sheet together. And you might be thinking, well, Dan, the score sheet's an open book test. Well, it's not, though. And oftentimes coaches think, oh, well, I can always go back and refer to the score sheet, which is ultimately what we want them to do. But how many of you as owners have ever had that conversation with a coach, been like, hey, when you change that, did you confirm on the score sheet that that's legal, or that doesn't change your ratios, or that counts as an elite skill, or do you have enough? And then you realize, oops, we don't, because they're making assumptions because they know the score sheet and they ultimately don't know everything as well as they do. And how did we discover this? So I created a test, a very actually basic test on the United score sheet, because that is what we compete on. And I gave it to my coaches. It was a 27 question test, and it asked things like, what is the maximum stunt difficulty range? Now, you could say, well, that could be a trick question. And you're right. You could trick yourself out of the correct answer, which on the United score sheet is maximum stunt difficulty is a 4.5. I didn't even say, what do you need to do to get max stunt difficulty? It was a lot of true and false. There was a lot of options where you could definitely figure out the right answer, but you could also talk yourself out of the right answer. And what was funny is when I said, hey, we're going to take a pre-test, my staff all was like, oh no, like I don't take tests well. They all had all the excuses ahead of time. And then they took the test and they did really poorly. Our highest score, that wasn't Tori, which Tori got B on it. She missed, I think, 4 questions. And those questions were, I think, one I had an error on. And then there were some that, the wording could have been a little bit different, or you maybe missed a checkbox, so you missed a point. So the highest score was like a higher B plus. The rest of my staff, the highest score was a 16 out of 27, which I think was like a 58%. And the average score was a 10 out of 27 from my staff, who I consider experts. I would have previously said, yeah, they know the score sheet. In fact, some of my staff travel and do choreography. Now, again, we do operate from the perspective of we're always pulling out that score sheet. We're always looking at it. We're always confirming it, especially when we go and do choreography. I myself do that all the time. I go and double check the numbers, double check the ratios, double check all of those things. But they were simple questions like, what do you need for your jump category? Is it most or max? And it is max for jump category. Are there 2 running, tumbling drivers on the score sheet? Is there a max participation driver for standing tumbling? Like, those are all relatively benign questions, and my staff struggled to answer them. Now, you could say it doesn't really matter, and you're right. It doesn't really matter as long as they continue to check the score sheet, which was ultimately my point. What I wanted to do was A, see where they did, see how they did and scored. And then B, I wanted to actually take the time to show them in a very tangible way so they could understand why I make such a big deal about it, why they need to actually go and check the score sheet, and why they can't just assume that they know it. It is so critical that they go back and they look at those things. And no matter who you are, no matter how much you've learned the score sheet, no matter how many times you've read it, you should always be going back and confirming, because we also could just be misremembering. Like, it's very possible as a human being to just not recollect something correctly. We've all made mistakes, and where then you see it on paper and you're like, oh my gosh, I did know that. Like, why did I think that way? It happens to everyone. So it's okay to go back and use that document. And ultimately, those were the 2 things I wanted. I wanted to see where they knew, like, what was their memorization and recall like for the score sheet, which the answer is bad. And then remind them, hey, go back and look. So this is why it's so important that you don't change your routine, you don't take out a group, you don't remove a skill without going back and checking the score sheet. And this is why we have redundancies, where then I approve those changes, because you want redundancy in place to ensure that things aren't missed and errors that could be avoided are not missed and then therefore happen, right? We want to avoid those errors. Number 2 is that you are probably not talking to your staff enough. Now, I've talked about this on other episodes, and I even realize I'm not talking to the bulk of my staff enough. There were so many things that came up over the course of the weekend between my team coaches and my class coaches that were like, yeah, we've been thinking this thing for a really long time. Or yeah, there's this issue and we've never corrected it. And we've never told you about it because we never just really had the opportunity. And it comes down to you're not talking to your staff enough in a formalized setting where they have the opportunity to provide feedback, to let you know what they think could be improved upon, or let you know what challenges they're running into in doing their job. I've talked about it before. Many times you have coaches who are not performing or employees who are not performing. It's because they don't know exactly how to execute the thing. One of the things that also came up is we had implemented something within our class programming, and I thought that there was buy-in, but it had kind of fizzled away when we moved to the new facility. And I'll just be straight up with it. We implemented journaling, and you have each class athlete having a journal that they utilize to set goals, to get recognition for performance during class, for living up to our core values. We had skill trackers in there. But the biggest thing was so they could take notes, and so they could also set goals and track their goals and how they are moving forward. And coaches could also give them feedback within those journals when it fit. When we initially started the conversation, my staff were like, oh yeah, no, we got it figured out and it went really good. And yeah, we were doing great with the journals. It was awesome. And I brought up a couple like, okay, well, these are some things that I saw as concerns and I really want to get them implemented. I'm not sure why they fell by the wayside. And then it turned into this kind of discussion of like, well, this really didn't work. And well, that really didn't work. And well, the staff didn't really buy into it. Like we weren't really bought into even what the value of doing these journals was. And my director was like, I didn't really know how to explain it to them because I didn't really see the value in them. And here I am going, oh, like one, that's really bad, right? We're having them do something and they don't understand the why behind it. And beyond that, my director, who's supposed to be the liaison to give that information to them, they don't understand and believe in the why behind it. And it came from not talking about that enough. So you need to make sure that you are talking to your people and that they have the opportunity to give feedback and that they're understanding the why behind the things that you're doing. It's absolutely mission essential if you want your program to grow, if you want your staff to start taking the lead on more things. They need to understand the why and at least be partially bought into it. They don't have to fully like, oh yeah, I'm 100%. I 100% agree, but they've at least got to be bought in enough that they're willing to drive that ball forward and back your play. Number 3 is never underestimate your younger coaches. Now, I've always known this, but it was just driven home in such an amazing way this last weekend / up to yesterday. So we were having the conversation about the journals and there was the old guard, right? The older staff, the people who've been around for a long time who didn't like change. They were like, they were the ones finding all the problems. And most of the problems were not really significant problems, but they had all the reasons why not to do something, why not to change something. And my younger staff were the ones who were like, no, but you could do this. No, but we could do it like this. When we were talking about the organizational challenge, one of the things that we were encountering was in the old facility, it was hard to get the athletes their journals. And it was really just a systematic organizational problem, right? What are the systems that we need to create to give them the journals or get them the journals in an easy way? And my younger staff, one of them looks at me and she goes, this sounds like so much fun. She was so excited to organize this stuff and figure out, how to get these organizers together and build these tables and do this stuff. And so her and Tori were vibing because Tori loves to organize things. And this is a 17-year-old still in high school. Now, on top of that, right? It would be very easy to underestimate a 17-year-old. The amount of gym owners and even adults I talk to that are like, oh, kids these days just don't care as much. They don't try as hard. They've got all the excuses, etc. This kiddo, 17 years old, listens to this whole conversation. She comes back, doesn't ask anything, right? Comes back just what she took from the conversation. She goes into Canva. She recreates our entire journal, rebuilds it, brands it, does all this stuff, brings it to me yesterday and is like, here you go. I made this. And she completely redid it. And it's like probably 10 to 15 times better than what my previous tumbling director had kind of put together because that wasn't their 5%. It wasn't even their, not their style at all. Not their 90%, nothing. They are not into doing those crafty things. This individual totally was and was very excited about this and took it upon themselves to go execute that task. And I could have said, I didn't ask you to do that. Like, that's not your job. Thanks, but no thanks. But I'm going to cultivate that. Like I called Tori right afterwards and I go, so can we just tell her to drop out of high school and work at the gym full time? I would not do that ever. But like that's kind of where I was like, dang, she is amazing. Like this is phenomenal. This is exactly what we want. So it is a really, really amazing thing to remember that you should not underestimate your younger staff. They are oftentimes the most hungry, the most moldable, the most potential. And if you can learn to harness that, you can build the staff of your dreams. You can have the amazing staff that you want to have. Just because you are where you are with your staff does not mean that you have to stay there. But the only way to overcome that is to train it. Can you hire for it? Yes, sorta, but I don't see a lot of success with that in the cheer industry because so many people stay at the gyms that they're at because they're loyal to their owners, loyal to their former coaches, they're loyal to those programs. So think about those things when you are trying to determine who's going to be your next staff member. Who do you have in your gym? Who's ready to graduate high school? Who's moving up? And maybe they don't go to college. There are more and more kids who are going, you know what? I'm going to take a couple years. And if you can give them a very real job, making a decent salary, working at your gym and helping your gym grow, why wouldn't they take it? They get to keep following their passion and they get to make a living doing it. And you don't need to make as much of a living when you're 18 years old. So there's a lot of really cool things you can do when you don't underestimate your younger staff members. All right, everyone, I hope you've enjoyed this episode, and I hope you enjoyed learning about how we took these lessons from our staff training and retreat. I can go into on another episode how we structure our staff trainings and retreat and why we do them the way we do and the timing that we do, although there are a number of different opportunities. My last bonus nugget for you is simply get your staff together, because building those staff bonds will pay dividends. So make it worthwhile, make your staff feel like a family, and they'll be a better staff for you 100%. All right, I hope you enjoyed the episode. And as always, share it with someone who would appreciate it. Thank you for listening, and we will catch you on the next episode.